Well, here we are on the
Okay.
Trump Tyranny Tracker. We're doing a special edition on a late, early evening, I should say, late for some of us, edition of the show. It's good to have Olga Lautman, the creator of the Trump Tyranny Tracker, here as always. And what we're looking at is the authoritarian grab that is currently happening by the Trump regime, as we do every day, Monday to Friday here. Boy, there's a lot going on. But today's news, Olga, of Jim Comey being arraigned in front of that judge, pleading not guilty on the 2 counts that he was charged. This is a real step into authoritarianism. I mean, this is one of those markers I remember you talking about during our seminar. This is one of the things you pointed out. This is one of the steps that authoritarians use.
Yeah, and this is just the beginning. I mean, he'll be the first one. I don't foresee, anything happening to him as far as, I do think the judiciary will hold. But the bigger problem is, that with this, I mean, this also silences a lot of people who are still inside of government or people who are relying on a pension and want to speak out and are afraid to. So this is meant to send a chill, not more, for Trump. This is purely a propaganda spectacle, um, because I don't see, I mean, frankly, from what I've seen with the case, I don't foresee any serious consequences for Comey. But, the bigger problem is that this is just the beginning. We're going to see this probably a few times a month happening. And this is meant to send a chill to people who are, unlike Comey, who can't afford to speak out. So.
And it really does begin to frame all of Trump's enemies. He's launched this new surveillance law that basically allows them to surveil people who have what I think are fairly moderate liberal views, and label them as pre-terrorists. So his attack after the Charlie Kirk shooting on the left, on the liberal left, and on this rhetoric that he keeps talking about, which is supposedly causing all this violence, seems to, now also include the Department of Justice.
Yeah, and look, without Charlie Kirk, I mean, they capitalized on it, and as does any dictator. I mean, in Russia, either the Kremlin is carrying out the violence or the Kremlin is capitalizing off an attack or an event that happened. So here, he's capitalizing off of it, but trust me, this has all been in his head. With or without Charlie Kirk, he would have found a way, once all his sycophants are in all the agencies, which I said, that first they need to get all the agencies under their control. And then from there, they move on. And that's when you start actually seeing, the action phase. And this is where we are now. They spent the first several months putting everything under their control. And now they're moving on. And it's only going to get worse from here.
It does. It doesn't feel like that. I think, any liberal-minded person, certainly any Democratic leader, anyone who's in a position of power must be thinking a lot about what they're saying and doing, because, this is a chilling factor, as you point out. It's a way to chill everyone's opposition to him. Yet it seems that it's also at the same time driving down his approval ratings. None of it seems to be sticking with the audience that he really wants, in terms of independent voters and the like. It's sort of all falling flat. We saw it last week with the generals meeting. That didn't work out for him at all. And, and we're now seeing it, I think we're going to see it again with the judiciary, who are pushing back. The courts are pushing back in the same way as the military is pushing back. And those are important institutions that are holding up this democracy. It's not just the executive, of course.
Yes, but I would caution with approval ratings that, dictators normally don't care about approval
Right.
ratings. And then it'll get to a point where, they put out enough threats that everyone has their leader at 80%, 90% approval rating. But the courts are holding. And again, look, their goal is to put fear in us. Our goal is not to allow this fear and to continue sticking, up for what we believe, pushing forward, and that's it. So I think, there's more of us than them, and I think we need to just band together and strategically push back, and that's it. And I mean, this should be happening across former military members. This should be happening across grassroots communities and frankly, everything. I saw the funniest thing today. I mean, literally, I got stuck 15 minutes watching this 20-second clip on loop. And in Portland, the city that's that's war ravaged, the protesters, a few of them, put on costumes, like these big costumes of unicorn and what is it called? A dinosaur, and what was the other? A raccoon. And we're blasting music. I mean, this is how you push back against
I've
dictators. I
argued
mean,
that before. We need a love
yeah.
parade. I've said, like let's go to the streets of Washington D.C. and everyone just dances. It doesn't have to be a protest that people are, chanting. We could just have a big party for everybody, and millions of people, could show up for that. But that is the kind of you're right. That is the kind of thinking that counters what they're doing. It's the same thing as those flowers it was in Belarus or Georgia. I can't remember where they handed the flowers to the
Belarus.
police. Yeah, it's such a contrary thing rather than just yelling at the police and provoking them, give them flowers, dance,
I
all
love
these
this.
things
I
you could
mean,
do.
frankly, I think we should have a nationwide protest and all dress up as big furry animals and just go out and have fun.
Have a
That's it.
furry day. Well, there is a protest on October the 18th.
Yes, there is one. But one thing before we move on to the protest and whatever, one thing with his policies, what you're going to see more of, and I actually, kind of laughed and at the same time like, okay, well, fuck around and find out. This libertarian from, I think, New Hampshire, who is a huge Trumpster. I mean, he supported Trump and, everything. Apparently was stopped at the border and had his phone searched and questioned about his political views and his libertarian party and this and that and whatnot, and then actually went on Twitter complaining, and he's like, "What is happening here? This is not supposed to happen." And so
Which
the
border
good
was
thing
this?
is,
He's coming in from
huh?
where? Where was he coming in from?
I don't know where he
Okay,
was coming
okay.
from, and I need to go find his tweet because I actually sent it to someone and laughed about it. I mean, none of this is a funny matter. But the fact is that here you have a big Trumpster who, you know, voted for Trump, pushed Trump on us, and now he's getting the repercussion. And this is the bigger picture, that these repressive actions don't stop with liberals. This is going to cross everyone, and it will be MAGA influencers because you know what? Right now, Trump made a phone call, basically shut the hell up when it came to Epstein to his influencers. Next time, it's not going to be a phone call. When he feels more emboldened and he's like, I don't need my base, then we're going to see Department of Justice coming in and saying, excuse me, why are you spreading this or pushing for this? So,
Yeah, I mean, Lev Parnas on an earlier show I did talked about this permeating through the system, how people on every level are going to get the mood that Trump is setting, that it's permissible to do these kinds of things, to be violent against liberals, to be being very invasive in the searches in different places, and the ICE raids on people's homes are just horrifying. But they set the mood for what and this nation is going to go through, which is going to be so much more of the same kind of thing, complete invasion and complete loss of your civil rights.
but the positive of this is that the more people that get affected, the more will wake up.
Mm.
And I think people will push back because inherently the majority of Americans are good. If you go on Twitter or any social media, you're fed an algorithm of hate and division and like, why do I even bother fighting? This is what Americans are and whatever. But inherently the majority are good and the majority are not going to stand for this. And the more lawless it gets, the more people, because the people in this country, they want stability. They just want to be able to go to work, pay their bills, have stability, and not this chaos. And when things get unstable and chaotic and expensive, and you don't know what your health insurance is, or even if you're going to have health insurance, the stock market, I mean, is long overdue for a correction, and that's going to send a shockwave through many people's, homes. I think that people will just more and more will wake up and then the pendulum will start swinging towards the middle.
I think you're right. I mean, there are these opinion polls that are saying that it's impossible to reconcile Americans' point of views, but you know, just a few years ago we were on the same page, so it's not that hard a thing to do. It's just a lot of propaganda in the works. Onto the Trump tyranny tracker for today. In Brighton Park, Chicago, 27 city police officers were affected by tear gas deployed by federal agents during a chaotic protest response. According to Chicago Police Superintendent Larry Snelling, federal agents called for police assistance after a shooting by ICE, but then released chemical agents while CPD officers were still on the scene, leaving many officers coughing and disoriented. This represents a federal agents using chemical weapons against local law enforcement is quite something, and really sets up this battle that's been going on between the state and the federal.
Yeah, and I actually saw a few of the videos, of police officers being hit by these chemical agents, being gassed, basically. And there's a bigger, even, let me back up with this, because these police officers were responding to a quote unquote shooting. And this is extremely, I mean, this is disgusting. This literally is, like I thought I was uh, reading Russian news when I saw this. So over the weekend, the Department of Homeland Security came out and said that a woman was, and a bunch of people boxed in ICE agents, and that she had a semi-automatic rifle. Kristi Noem wrote this. And basically made it like, I mean, when I saw this, I was like, oh, holy crap, it's someone, now shooting at ICE agents. And this is how the story was delivered by the government. Now, I believe Monday, the lawyer who happened to obtain body cam footage saw that it was the ICE agents who were being aggressive with the woman. She was released until, her court. That they screamed and said something like, "Oh, something, something, bitch," and then pulled over and shot her 5 times. And this is what these people were
Shot her
responding
five
to.
times?
They shot her 5 times. Five
Oh my gosh.
times. So if you listen to the government, you would really think that, a protester was really angry and decided to take a semi-automatic rifle and go after ICE agents. If you read the actual story from Chicago Sun-Times, the body cam footage. I mean, this is more powerful than what Kristi Noem is saying or what her lawyer is saying. It's showing a completely different story, to the point that a few of these agents, realized that they had body cam footage and kind of started being careful as to what to say after the fact.
Mm.
And then you have police officers responding to back up these ICE agents who caused this absolute unnecessary thing and shot a woman 5 times, and then they end up getting gassed. And this is not the first incident that they're getting, they've been gassed. You have protesters who have been gassed. You've had chemical agents thrown outside of schools. I mean, this is ICE right now is so lawless. I would say this is like Russia, but in Russia, they don't act like this. I mean, there is at
Right.
least some kind of, it's systematic, I guess, lawfulness. It's a lawless country, but you wouldn't have, thugs running around and just freaking throwing chemical agents and doing this in front of schools and wherever,
It's really chilling,
basically.
isn't it? And provocative. It almost feels like they're trying to provoke violence in
Yes.
response. I mean, that it's not just about getting the immigrants or whoever it is they're trying to deport, but it's about doing it in such a way that it creates a response from the community that will spark violence, that will spark some sort of response. So
Yep.
then they can send in the military or whomever else that they want to create this insurrection vibe that they're trying to go for.
And just to add one more thing, you have Texas, this piece of shit Abbott, there's no other word to describe him, who sent in his National Guard,
Right.
flaunting it. Meanwhile, Texas had the higher crime than in all categories than Illinois. So, I mean, you know what? If this is about crime or whatever this is, keep your Texas, National Guard and keep it inside of Texas. Deal with your own crimes.
I mean, again, it's
So I
another sort
mean,
of setting up this conflict between red states and blue states. And of course,
yes,
today, I think
yes,
Trump also said that he was going to arrest Pritzker.
yes,
I
yes.
mean,
Both. And Johnson and the mayor.
it's unbelievable when you get to this level that the president is having this war against these left leaning governors. It's just unbelievable. And these ICE raids are so violent. The videos that keep coming up are such an embarrassment for ICE, but also an embarrassment for the entire world to see America in this horrific state right now, where they've got law enforcement officials beating people up, stealing kids out of their beds at night. I mean, it's just unbelievable, the brazenness that is going on. Our second story tonight is Chicago, staying in Chicago, and involves the things you're talking about. The violence in Chicago has now triggered legal action from journalists, unions, and protesters who have filed a federal lawsuit accusing Trump's agents of using extreme brutality to silence media and demonstrators outside a local ICE facility. The 52-page complaint details pepper ball and tear gas attacks on credentialed reporters and clergy, arguing that the regime violated the First Amendment by targeting peaceful dissent. This isn't crowd control, of course. This is what we're talking about, is absolute violation of the Constitution.
It is, and journalists are being targeted specifically. I mean, I was covering and documenting this in Los Angeles,
Mhm.
in Georgia. They are specifically going and doing everything they can to violently intimidate journalists so they don't, sorry, so they stop covering this because they don't want their to be held accountable for their egregious actions.
It really is an attempt to chill the media, and we're seeing it from two sides. We're seeing the media being brought out by friends of Donald Trump. That's going to chill it from the other side, from the ownership side. But there is this pervasive thing that's going on. The more violent they are against journalists, the less journalists are inclined to cover these kinds of things because they don't want to put their life on the line. While
And
it,
that's why people need to double down. I
yeah,
mean, they are doing everything to intimidate. Send more journalists in to cover this,
absolutely.
and cover what they are doing to journalists. Like other journalists should stick together and make sure to cover up and make sure to spread, what is happening to their colleagues, because this is
And
where you double down.
and also support independent media, like all the voices here on Substack. There are so many important voices that are emerging here, that are in fact the new sort of independent voices of America. And these are the kinds of things that need to be supported as best you can, because at a time like this, we need as much independent observers and independent reporters as we can, of what's going on. Um, while attention was on the Chicago, the White House Office of Management and Budget quietly deleted references to a 2019 law guaranteeing back pay for furloughed employees from its shutdown guidance. This is a really incredible thing. I mean, if they are going to say that they're denying restitution to 620,000 federal workers, what is it? Are they just firing them all? Are they just letting them all go without any back pay at all? And can they do this? Can they just overwrite the law based on their whim?
No, they can't override the law. I mean, ultimately, if they choose not to pay back pay, then it'll be litigated in court, and judges will follow the law. But the bottom line is that you have, yet again, this regime going to the websites when something's inconvenient for them, deleting this information. They did it, with the statistics of domestic terrorism showing that it was the far right that literally, I mean, a million times more committed crimes. It was like, I think, resulted in 500 and something deaths versus the far left, which was like 17 deaths, if I
Mm.
remember correctly. So after Charlie Kirk, that report was not inconvenient, so they pulled this report down. But this goes to a bigger picture, because once you have a regime pulling reports out, fabricating data, this will hit the economy, because then no one's going to trust what is coming out of the government, and in general. I mean, if they are fabricating data to push their agenda, we're in a bad shape. And again, domestically, we are all used to this, but we have to remember that there are investors around the world. And if they see that data is being deleted, and things are running lawlessly, I mean, the reason that America is a powerhouse economically is because of the rule of law. I mean, this is our strongest strength. And once they see the rule of law deteriorating and the reports are disappearing or job numbers are fabricated, the inflation rate is fake, then people are going to start pulling their money out of here.
Which, of course, is exactly the point. Senator Ted Cruz has sent a letter to Wikimedia Foundation CEO Mariana Iskander accusing Wikipedia of systemic left-wing bias. His evidence: Wikipedia classifies Fox News as unreliable and MSNBC as generally reliable. Cruz demanded documents on how Wikipedia labels sources and alleged the platform financially supports left-wing organizations. Here we go again, right? They're trying to frame anyone who's, I don't want to say left wing because I don't think they are, anyone who is objective in any way as being left leaning if it's critical of the right wing.
Or extremist in
Yeah.
their point. And I actually, when I documented this, again, I shouldn't laugh, but I did, because the only other country that I've ever heard of having linked to a Wikipedia was Russia. I mean, they went after Wikipedia, they banned Wikipedia, they threatened Wikipedia, they sued Wikipedia, and did everything to alter Wikipedia, to erase like the truthful information in Russian Wikipedia on the oligarchs. And, because if you look at the Russian Wikipedia, I mean, right now it's completely censored too. If you Google the same oligarch or the same businessman or the same government official, military, whatever, on the American Wikipedia. And then here we have Ted, who picked up from his, dictator terrorist buddy and like, oh, good idea. Let me do the same thing. And this is, they've had this war and want to censor information that doesn't fit their agenda. And here we see it, escalating. And this is the same Ted Cruz who, actually defended Jimmy Kimmel. And then,
Yeah.
not even 2 weeks later, he's like, no, I don't like how this has factual information. We need to, have Breitbart in there and OAN and maybe Russia's state media to prove that this is factual, not, MSNBC.
They really are trying to move everyone's point of view, right? They're trying to shift it from being the stuff that we used to think of being, completely extremist, completely unsustainable in society, unethical, immoral, call it what you will. They're trying to make that seem like it's okay, and then shift the other side into a box that isn't true at all, isn't word in reality, isn't word in facts.
Yeah. That's exactly what they're doing in media and universities on social media. Like they really just want the control of the information space because for a dictator to actually have some kind of success, they have to control the information flow. They have to control what comes out, how people receive it, what is available to, via searches, and that's it. Because once they lose control of the information space, it becomes very difficult for them to maintain power. And this is why you've seen, I mean, this was how the Soviet Union was. This is how Russia is, and for 2 decades, I mean, probably the majority of the domestic spending goes to actual propaganda and controlling the media, social media space, putting restrictions, trying to, find work or blockages for people who are finding workarounds using VPNs and everything else. I mean, they understand once people start getting information, it'll become a little bit harder for them to maintain power.
Yeah, truth is their enemy. It's their kryptonite, and we just have to keep pushing it as much as we can, and hopefully it will bring them down. As will the protests on October the 18th are very important for people to express their voices. I mean, we sort of see the military, the judiciary, all pushing back, but the fourth leg on that stool is the people, and the people must really show their disapproval. I mean, that's just what the Constitution calls. and it's what's worked in other countries, is ultimately lots of people on the streets, lots of protests, lots of people effectively communicating to the government that they're not doing their job.
Yeah, and strategies. I mean, the key thing is strategy. When people get fed enough, have a national strike, you know, they get into good trouble, and that's it. I mean, frankly, like I said, I'd love to organize a protest of furries, a costume party across America to push back against it, because I mean, it will be pretty silly if ICE or federal agents or the militia or National Guard starts what they're going to attack a dinosaur or a unicorn. I mean,
I mean, they
you know.
would, they would, if they needed to.
They
But the
would, but
truth
it
is,
looks silly. I mean, the
yeah.
thing is, it would look silly. So I think we need to strategize, and the more people are affected by this regime, I think the more we'll start speaking out, and we need to have a national strategy where everyone can, work on the same like objectives, in a strategic and coordinated way.
How do
We
you do
cannot
that? How
show
do you
the
get a
field.
national strategy? You've spoken about this before. How do you actually get every player together? How do you come up with a
It's
way
a matter
forward?
of It's a matter of linking all the existing grassroots movements, linking them under one organization, and kind of having the same messaging, and involving the influencers, not involving the politicians, but at least letting them know this is what is happening and this is what we're working on, and pushing and having strategic protests. Because, for instance, I documented last week, we were on hiatus, but there was a story that CNN investigation found that the increase of ICE agents being impersonated is going through the
Right.
roof. And I mean, this is resulting in so many things, from robberies to intimidation to, even they had on their segment a Ukrainian who had a, supermarket, and how someone was impersonating an ICE agent, to send a chill through the Ukrainian community. Now, mass thugs running around, and I've spoken about this a million times, mass thugs running around is, I mean, very un-American. Like, this is not what America is. Our law enforcement, we pay for it, so they're supposed to have accountability to us, to the people. So in this case, coordinate a protest specifically on the ask. We do not want agents en masse without insignia and ID. And that's it. And then you have protest. Pick, for instance, a significant location, whether it be a police station at your like every town and city as the symbol, or pick a symbolic place to meet, and that's it. And you have both the street protest, and you have another group who maybe doesn't feel comfortable with protest. They could handle calling the local lawmakers, councilmen, town mayors, town officials, to push this through. Then another group can call, the federal, like Congress people. And then you have a social media presence. And here you put together a strategy. I guarantee you, if this was done, and you do this, like not one time, but just continue doing it and say, we're not leaving until these people who we pay for are held accountable, and that they, operate within the law. I guarantee you we would win this, because the majority of people don't, Americans would support. They don't, no one would feel comfortable if you're walking down the street and, some mass thugs come and grab people, and you don't know who these people are,
Yeah.
what they are. And that's it. And that's what I mean about strategy. Like, it has to be coordinated. It has to be whatever. And once you win one issue, you move on to the next task, and just keep going. And then if things get bad, national strike. Because I mean, frankly, we should not be paying, for these fascist operations and tactics. I mean, I feel gross. I feel like right now I'm paying into the Russian government.
Mm, basically. Olga Lautman, thank you for being here on this later edition of the Trump Tourney Tracker. We'll try this time again maybe tomorrow. Do you want to try again at 6 o'clock? We'll see if it works. If any of you watching prefer the earlier time or prefer the later time, let us know. We'd be delighted to meet your needs. That is the Trump Tourney Tracker. Is there anything you want to promote that's happening on Unmasking Russia or TTT?
On I'm asking Russia, we just released an article on Monday it dropped, and it's about Cambridge Analytica. Remember that?
I do remember
No
it
one
very
held
well,
accountable.
actually.
No one held accountable. And coordination between Cambridge Analytica and just how Russia weaponized the information space with Facebook, Cambridge Analytica, the Trump campaign, how they all work seamlessly, WikiLeaks to disseminate this disinformation, and then of course the trolls and bots and everything to
What happened to that
amplify the
Facebook class action lawsuit that they were meant to pay a fortune to? I don't know if it ever happened. Interesting.
Listen, people, accountability. If we get this country, we cannot not stop. And I'm warning. This is a warning to Democrats. um, unless people like the ICE officials and everyone who is committing any kind of unlawful acts, unless they are held accountable and investigated and prosecuted, we cannot let this go. So, I mean, this is the lack of accountability, Cambridge Analytica. What they did, I mean, it was a military, psychological military operation on the American people. And the fact that absolutely no one was held accountable, the fact that the Facebook, what they did, that they weren't held accountable. I mean, it's incredible that, but this is what happens when there's no accountability.
Absolutely. Well, I'll see you all tomorrow on narrative.org, and we'll see each other tomorrow night on the Trump Tyranny Tracker. And thank you for being here, everybody. Have a great night, and have a good night, Olga.
Bye.
Bye.